Hi everyone, Elaine Hamilton. I was just admiring my little grey strip here. The crone energy coming in. So let's talk about a little story. Maybe it highlights this idea that I talked about in my last video about the mixing of the non-dual tools and techniques to try and influence desired outcomes. I said in my last video that I have some issues with the logic of this. So I was pondering how to describe it in a way that might make more sense. And I came up with this analogy of water. So water, as we know, has three states. When it's freezing cold, it turns into solid ice. Then at normal temperatures, it's fluid, it's a liquid, and then at high temperatures, it goes into a gaseous state as steam. So very clear, distinct properties of water at different temperatures, or the same potential. So water has these three states as a potential. Much like the non-dual state, everything is potentiality. It is yet formed. It is yet to come into the dualistic state. But once it comes into the dualistic state, it is governed by the classic physics and it doesn't change. So when you're in a warm climate, you will not see ice that doesn't melt. And when you're in a warm climate, you're not suddenly going to get ice forming spontaneously because you think it should, or you're not going to be able to manifest it because it breaks the rules of physics. And one of the godsends of living in a classical world of physics, Newtonian physics, is that things do follow very predictable patterns of behavior based on time and space and energy and blah, 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 blah. Thank God, because if it was like the dream world, and you're like running through sludge, you're running and you can't move, it would be really chaotic as your dream state is, right? Very chaotic because there's no laws of physics going on there. We can just make up whatever we want in our heads. So the analogy that I came up with was, as a person, we have certain personalities, we have certain paths, we have certain things that are happening to us, and we are in a lot less control of that than we think. Now, that's not to say that I'm nihilistic, that I'm saying, oh, it's all destiny, you can't change anything, because I know from my own life that's not true. When I change my attitude around certain things, when I change my old patterns of behavior, I do impact my future. Because if you have a certain pattern of behavior, it's going to give you a certain outcome. And if you change that pattern of behavior, it's going to give you a different outcome, right? So, for example, if you insist on drinking 2 bottles of wine a day or you smoke a packet of cigarettes a day, there is a certain outcome that is more than likely going to happen to you based on biology, right? It doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens more or less to more people than not in terms of ill health, in terms of, heightened risk around certain illnesses. So clearly, when we change certain patterns of behavior or certain mindset, then we do get different outcomes, right? So I'm not for a moment saying that we can't do anything to make our lives better. But what I am saying is this idea that we can just immerse ourselves in the non-dual world of no body, no thing, no one, no time, no space. And in that space of no one, then become a one, to have a desire, to think of a future. Automatically you're now desiring. So you're no longer no one, are you? Someone is desiring, something is desiring. So that desiring of that future, or the desiring of the goal, or whatever it is automatically coming from somewhere. You're not in the dual state, because that's by definition not the dual state. The dual state is full potentiality. So the full potentiality of H2O is ice, liquid, gas. So our full potential as consciousness is the non-dual state of anything is possible. That is true. Anything is possible. Just like H2O can form three different states, we can form infinite experiences out of a consciousness that is undivided. As soon as we divide it into this, through this prism, through this vehicle of a human brain, then we have brought it into manifestation. Okay, so like water, when H2O forms, dependent on the temperature, you are guaranteed it's going to come in as a certain state. We can measure it, it never changes. 100 degrees Celsius, it turns to steam. Under zero, it turns to ice. That's just the laws of physics. It doesn't change. So the analogy I came up with to maybe give an insight as to what some of these teachers are trying to say to you when you're saying, oh, go into the non-dual state, and then from there manifest your different intentions, is imagine a river in the Amazon. Okay, so we've got a river in the Amazon, and then it gets this idea in its head. It has the potential to be ice. And it looks at a glacier and goes, oh, I want to be a glacier because a glacier is so much cooler than a river, if that's what you think, right? So big, so powerful, it's got like polar bears on it. Excellent. I want to be an iceberg. It's in the Amazon. And it does lots and lots of meditation, and it does lots and lots of visualization, and it does lots and lots of clearing out all its old baggage and doing all the work, lots and lots and lots of work. And through the years, it's meandering towards its doom as it joins the ocean to be forever combined and merged with the ocean. As it gets closer and closer to the ocean, it's like, no, 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 I want to be an iceberg. I want to be an iceberg. Throws more and more money, more and more effort. Is it going to work? Is it going to become an iceberg? I think we know not, right? So we know that's never going to happen because it cannot defy the laws of physics. It cannot do it. It's never been done. It's never going to be done. That's just a full stop. That's reality of the dualistic world we live in. We live by certain rules. Those rules do not get broken. Doesn't matter how much meditation the water does, it's not going to turn into an iceberg. But what does happen, and this is really my issue with all of this, is that in the journey, this beautiful journey down the Amazon, with all of the trees and the parrots and the life and the relaxation of flowing as a river, even though it is flowing to its impending doom as it meets the estuary and the sea and the ocean, it will be merged, it will die into the ocean. That's going to happen. But the journey of the river as it meanders to its death is completely missed. The beauty of it, the life of it, the flow of it is missed because the river is so busy trying to turn itself into an iceberg. And at the point of death is basically like, I failed. And all the way down feels I'm failing because I'm not turning myself into an iceberg. Now, this in itself, I think, is one, a tragedy for the life that is lost and not lived. And I think it's an offense from the people who are peddling this shit, which is like just based on pseudo freaking quantum physics. It's like, have they even read a quantum physics book? I don't think so. Or if they have and they've twisted it into such a manipulative way, I don't know. It's not cool for me. And so I'm just putting it out there because if you are going down this route of the river, like at some point, all of us are going to merge with the ocean. That's a given. And for some of us, we're going to merge sooner. For some of us, we're going to merge later, but we're all going to merge. The bigger question is, are you enjoying your journey, or are you spending the majority of your time trying to change an outcome, turning yourself from a river into an iceberg, for example, or trying to make yourself become something that defies the laws of physics. And that could be that I know that can be a very difficult balance to find. But what I've noticed for myself is if I focus less on my desired outcome, what I want for the future, what I'm trying to change in myself, what's unacceptable in myself, and focus more on the journey itself, the daily joy that I find in my life, just remembering to be present in the moment, enjoying my cup of tea, waiting for the impulse to do something to come to me, waiting for the inspiration to kind of suddenly grab me out of nowhere. And I'm not saying I don't have plans. Of course, I have plans, but I hold them very, very lightly. Maybe they happen, maybe they don't. And I focus more on what is my mental attitude. So, my mental attitude to what is blossoming in front of me. So, for example, back to the river analogy, if the river was spending its days as it flowed towards its death, if it was spending its days truly focused on the joy of flowing and the animals and the trees and what it had in the Amazon, in the tropics, instead of focused on becoming an iceberg, overall, by the time it hits the ocean, it has had a fulfilling life. The idea that being an iceberg would be a better life becomes less and less and less important or believed, because when you're really enjoying the life that you've been given, then you do spend less and less time being envious or jealous of other people who have a quote unquote better deal than you do. And that's just what happens. So the more you enjoy your life, the less you compare with others. The more you enjoy your life, the more you are inwardly focused on what makes you happy, on what makes you fulfilled. And you just go and do that. And you don't try and think, oh, well, I'd be more fulfilled of this or that, because everything that is given to you in this life can be fulfilling in the very essence of it being experienced. So every single experience is a complete experience. I don't really know how to explain that better than that, but it is something that you can test out for yourself, right? If you just do these mindful meditations, again, I'm a big fan of meditation because it really brings you into the present moment. It allows you to really experience the breath for what it is, your senses for what they are, the moment for what it is. And in that moment, if you are fully immersed in it, I honestly defy you, or I challenge you to feel a lack of any sort. If you are truly in the present moment, all lack disappears because the moment is full. It's complete. It's complete in itself. And you don't need anything else to come in to make it better. And even if just the small experiment of right now, just sitting there and taking a few breaths and asking yourself, well, what would make this better? Honestly, what would make this better? Like, what could possibly be different that would make this better? Now, obviously, if you're going through a lot of pain, then that's true. When I went through a lot of pain, I was definitely like, well, less pain would be good. And I do agree with that. I haven't quite managed to get to the point where I'm thinking, no, no, even with this pain. But in general, when you're just slithering it down to this very breath, just that, I don't know. It's hard to know how that could be improved. So, gone off on a tangent yet again. But essentially, I wanted to tell this story because it kind of was popping into my head this morning. And the difference between, and again, it's quite even when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, where is the edge And I think the edge is where you find your edge. Okay. So it's the edge of being proactive and shifting your own attitude, your own way of perceiving what's happening is definitely changeable, right? And we've all had that experience. When I look at something very negatively, it feels more negative. When I look at something very positively, it feels more positive. Like these things are the edge that I'm talking about. But then when you get to the point of, well, if I think more positively, I can change outcomes in ways that I decide I want it to be, or I can somehow change my state or the cells of my body, and I can change my life trajectory in some kind of magical, mystical way, whereby I can actually go from a liquid state to a solid state, or I can walk through a wall, or I can fly. I think that's a little bit like, do you honestly believe that you can change the weather? Right. So you can look if, with enough mental focus, you can get yourself into the potentiality of non-duality where everything is possible. I'm not saying this isn't true. It is true. It's like quantum physics says it's true. There is the potential before it's measured. There is the full potential of everything. Everything is there, right? It's the latent potential of the universe is all there. But as soon as we measure it, as soon as it comes into existence, it doesn't change its state. And this is the thing that I think we like to think that, oh, I can dissolve into the quantum state and then collect out of my nowhereness, nothingness, nobodiness. I can then somehow collect something to bring it back up with me. That is, that's ridiculous. It literally is as ridiculous as saying I can shift from a river to an iceberg in 30-degree temperature. It's like that. It's just not, doesn't, no. Ah, so you have to think about this stuff logically. You have to think about this stuff logically and focus instead on what you can impact right now. Can I have a better experience because of the way that I'm opening to that experience right now? Then, if you are supposed to be on a different trajectory, that then opens for you, right? Because you're changing your pattern. So, from that viewpoint, yes. But to think that I can change the weather because I can manipulate quantum mechanics, or that I can somehow change my, I don't know, change my epigenetics. Do I believe I can change my epigenetics? I don't know. I don't know. And this is, I guess, where the edge is. And I will continue to explore this myself, in terms of can I really change the certain specific patterns in my system enough to end up living a completely different life to the trajectory I'm on at the moment. Because in a lot of the non-dual talks in the speak, it's like, no, it's an arising. And anything that the ego thinks is part of the arising. And we have actually no control on how that goes. So I guess that's the edge we're walking is where is the control? What is the control? Um, and am I spending too much time trying to turn myself into an iceberg when actually I should just be enjoying my life? And what does it feel like if I'm just enjoying my life? No matter what's happening, no matter what the outcome is that I'm hurtling towards, can I just enjoy it? And for some people, they get really upset about this. And I've said this before. It's kind of like, well, What are you saying that I can keep drinking? Are you saying that I can keep smoking myself to death? Sure, you know the outcome of that though. And it's kind of like, well, is that your desired outcome as well? So, but yeah, I mean, if it's happening, it's happening, right? And if you're enjoying it and it's happening and you're enjoying it, but then I think really carefully about how much of that are you really engaged with? It's a tricky one, isn't it? It really is a tricky one. And I'm going to keep talking about it because I also find I'm on this edge as well with you guys. And it's kind of like, okay, what really is going on? But I do like the logic of it. Like for me, that the logic needs to track. And some of this logic is totally untrackable. It's nonsensical. It's like religion, seriously. It's like the religion makes no sense. What are you doing it for? So the same thing with this. If this new age quantum physics, how to manipulate quantum physics for your own needs and your own desires, that just makes no, it makes zero sense. It's like the same thing with religion, right? If you're a good girl, you'll get to heaven. It's a bribery system. And the same thing here. If you do enough meditation, you'll get all the goodies at the end. Well, what is this pot of gold? Like, are we still believing in leprechauns and rainbows, that there's a pot of gold for us at the end if we do enough work? Because that's just blatantly not true. Just look around. Unless you're saying that everybody else isn't doing the work and you are, like life just lifes, and the river just meets the ocean. That's it. And so, how are you meeting the ocean? How are you flowing with your life? These are much more important questions than, how can I push back so I don't hit the ocean? Because we're all going to hit the ocean, right? That's going to happen to all of us. And it's kind of messy for most of us. Probably all of us is pretty messy, I imagine. And that's just life. That's normal. And so to think that you can somehow manipulate the laws of physics is very delusional, in my opinion, of which, as you know, I have many. So I'll leave that with you now. And again, I will also say that in the past, I've been a big advocate for this kind of ability um, to be able to jump. And I've done a lot of experimenting around the jumping myself. And I've just noticed, especially like with Reiki, you send Reiki to something and sometimes it really does shift. This is the thing I'm saying. Like I've seen a lot of weird shit. You know what I mean? So I do know that there is a whole bunch of other stuff going on that kind of defies logic in a sense, if your logic is like this. But if your logic is quite expanded, then it does still follow that logic in terms of the different vibrational frequencies. But it's just this is our vibrational frequency. And actually, there's this much vibrational frequency. And if we take into account all of that, then all of this other stuff is accounted for. But if we then jump to beyond or before the vibrational frequency is even frequencied, that's quantum mechanics. Like that's a whole different ball game. And there is no unified equation. There will never be a unified equation because the dual world comes out of the un the unmanifest. The manifest comes out of the unmanifest. So you can't take the unmanifest by definition. You can't take the unmanifest and then force it into a specific manifestation as a manifested ego. Oh God, how do I explain that? So I am the river. Yes. So my ego is the river and I want to be an iceberg and I'm trying to go under in order to go there, but I'm already this. I'm already this. So I'm already water. I can't go under and then, well, actually, that's not true. I could evaporate into the air and then be taken by a cloud and then be dropped into a glacier. So actually, I could, or dropped into the ocean and then formed into a glacier, but then I'm no longer the river. Right. You're going to talk yourself into circles with this. Anyway, food for thought. Um, as you can see, very loosely formed from my end as well. I'm just blah, blah, blahing as I usually do. Maybe you follow my logic, maybe you don't. Maybe it sets you off on your own logic path. This is really the only reason I blah, blah, blah. I have no idea. Okay, guys, and you know that. I'm just 1 minute I'm blah, blah, blah. Next week I'll have another analogy to throw at you, and you'll be like, that's not quite the same. It's fun though. I'm having fun anyway. All right, guys, take care. Lots of love. Bye.